and she is the Vice Chancellor of one of the foremost private universities in Abeokuta, and that is Chrisland University, our next door neighbor, I must say. Welcome to New Dawn this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, and she'll be discussing with us public health in the public eye. Public health in the public eye. What is that all about? All we are going to be discussing about this morning is public health. So that is what we are discussing. Charity.
Hello, good morning, and we want to welcome our new professor, the Vice Chancellor of Coastland University. She's actually resuming after the other female professor, Professor Babalola. And thank you for coming. Yeah, Era of Women. So I'm celebrating her on the program. You're welcome, Professor Awilogo.
Thank you very much.
Now let's discuss public health. How do you define public health, and why is it very important for us to talk about it?
Thank you very much for having me. And I must say that there is no better time to talk about public health than now. When we talk about public health, we are looking at programs, research, activities that look into the health of communities, the health of individuals. What are the things that make them healthy? What are the things that will ensure that they remain healthy? And what should be done if that healthy status is not achieved? So that's a layman definition of what public health is all about. And why do we have to talk about public health? We need to talk about it because the time that we are now calls for it. If I am not healthy and you are my neighbors, I'm going to affect you. What I do would affect you. For example, if I throw trash into my drain and you are my next door neighbor, if there is flooding, my trash is going to block the drain, so water is not going to flow well, and then there is a flood that affects all of us. It will also bring about breeding of mosquitoes. So we need to talk about public health because that is the whole essence of our being alive.
But why don't we discuss, most of discourse, almost everywhere, any media space, any congregation, let me use that word, the least thing they discuss, they can discuss sports, can discuss politics, but the least thing we discuss is public health. Is it that we don't have that sense of awareness as a people, or we don't just take health seriously?
I think the reason is because we don't take health seriously. We take it for granted. And the only time we know that our health is important is if something just happens, as little as toothache, then you know health is important. So we need to talk about public health so that people can value health like women value their gold and diamond. You know, when women have gold, they make sure nothing tampers with it. We need to encourage people to take their health like that. And to let you know how far we don't value health, if we have vehicles, every morning we check the radiator to make sure there's water. We check the engine oil. Every 3 months we go to service it. If I ask all of us here, when last did you check? Did you do your medical check? We don't. That's just the summary of how much value or premium we place on health, and that's why we don't talk about it as much as we should.
Okay, talking about it now, what type of illness or diseases should we categorize under the public health? Health. How do we, for instance, now having an headache, can we term that as is it under a public health concern, or what are the form of diseases that can be seen as a dangerous one that can affect others, that can, so analyze it for us.
For us in the tropics in Africa, malaria is still #1. Okay. Even though malaria has been with us for long and we just say ordinary malaria. We ask people, what's wrong with Sushi Ibalasan? But malaria is much more dangerous than HIV. Children die from malaria. pregnant women, either they lose the pregnancy or they deliver low birth weight babies because of malaria. So malaria is still #1 major disease for us in Africa. But because we've lived with it for ages, we don't even see it as an issue. But malaria is with us. We also have something that is now creeping in on us, non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases mean you can't get it from me, unlike communicable diseases like cholera, although we have sporadic episodes of communicable diseases. But what we are now beginning to see is non-communicable diseases: hypertension, diabetes, cardiac effects. And why are we seeing that? Because there is a change in our lifestyle.
Okay.
Before, when we were young, we trekked to school. And trekking to school, we chat with our friends. We do what we call isi koko. In those days, your friend comes to see you in the house. You also see your friend to the house. Then your friend comes to see. We play football. But now, what do? We drop our children in school. I know there are security issues, but our lifestyle has changed. What do we eat? Most of the time we eat what I call plastic food. Plastic food because there's nothing nutritious about it. So our dietary lifestyle, we don't take fruits anymore. Meanwhile, our plate of food should be colorful. The more colors you have on your food, the healthier it is. But the other way around now. So we do less of physical activity, less of exercises, and so that is why those diseases are now creeping in on us, because they are lifestyle modification diseases. Cancers are also on us. Of course, HIV is still there, even though there's no noise about it anymore, but HIV is still with us. And we are seeing diseases that we call re-emerging diseases. That is, we thought they are gone, but they are coming back. Coming back because our environment is also not helping. We are not keeping our environment anymore. There is trash everywhere. I mean, in those days, you don't just throw anything out. We are brought up to take care of your environment, but now nobody cares anymore. So we are seeing re-emerging diseases. We also have what we call neglected tropical diseases. And those are diseases that have been with us, but nobody is even looking at them. And such diseases, we have onchocerciasis for people who live on the farm. You see some people, elephantiasis, called big legs, they are there. Nobody is talking about them. So we have a myriad of all of these diseases.
Okay, is human papilloma virus part of it?
It's one of the new diseases.
Okay.
And the mode of transmission. And that's why they're focusing on young girls for the vaccine. Because essentially sexually transmitted. And of course we have hepatitis B that is transmitted through blood, and necessarily is not through sex, but just for those of us female that go to hair salon and we do fixing, you know, the needle. So you don't know who had used the needle they are using for you before then, and whether there was a needle stick injury that was not cleaned, and they finish with one person, the next person gets that. So the needle had pricked the previous customer who may have hepatitis, because there are no symptoms. You won't know. You won't know you have hepatitis B. And so another person comes, the needle pricks that other person. as well, or all our manicure, pedicure equipment. So it's also one of the big issues that we have, but it doesn't show any symptoms like malaria will show. And so people are just carriers, and they don't know until it gets to a point that it's almost irreversible. Although once you have it, you can't reverse it, but you can do something about your lifestyle. So hepatitis B is another one.
Okay.
All right, Ma, you have opened the portal to so many topics. So maybe we start dissecting them and picking one after the other. The first thing I picked up is you asked us a question about medical checkup. And that is sometimes a scary thing, because one of the reasons why most people don't go for a checkup is because they are
don't want the results.
They are scared of the results. Now, how often should someone go for a checkup? At what age should it be persistent? And what kind of a check do you go for? Not just to what extent of check do you go for?
Okay, thank you very much. Annually, you do medical checkup annually, and once you have reached age 40, you should begin to do annual medical checkup. And you do basic ones. You want to find out about, your blood pressure measurement of your blood pressure should be constant, not once in a year. But the once in a year one, for the woman, you do pap smear to be sure that you are free of cervical cancer. You do mammogram to be sure that you are not at risk of breast cancer. Then you do ECG to check that your heart is fine. For the men, you do PSA to screen for prostate, in addition to doing chest X-ray, ECG, basic things. So I know that everybody is scared of the outcome. That's why we don't go, but we need to know, because sometimes if you know that there's a risk of developing something, then you can guard against it. Even when you know that, okay, this is there, then you can start management early and have a good quality of life, rather than it coming suddenly when there's absolutely nothing that anybody can do.
Okay. Another thing I have noticed is the health disparity between the rural areas and the urban areas. You tend to have a lot of focus when you talk about policies, advocacies, awareness. We tend to focus on the cities, and some rural areas suffer at some point, except there are some very urgent need to go there. How do we address this?
Thank you very much. One of the challenges we have in health is what we call health inequity. That is, this person has access, this other person does not have access. Access in terms of the resources, access in terms of the facilities. And so oftentimes most of our health activities are centered in the urban areas. And that is why we have primary health care, which is unfortunately not working as it should. The primary health care system is supposed to take care of those in the rural and remote areas, but unfortunately it's not working as intended. But how do we solve this? Is to have an all-inclusive planning. Involve the people at the rural areas in planning, because there are lots of resources at the community level. I usually say, there's a Yoruba adage that says before the corn came, the chicken has been eating something. So we need to understand and talk to people at the community level. Yes, we may not have the resources that will take care of everybody at once, but we can sufficiently engage with them to say, when you see certain things, please refer. So there has to be a referral port where they can go to quickly if they see. Now the health insurance can also help, because sometimes it's the resources. So the health insurance can take care of people in the remote areas. And then we need to make conscious efforts that health gets to the rural areas. I remember some years back we had this World Bank survey. We're looking at health services in Nigeria, and the survey was in 2 states, Lagos and Kogi State, and I covered Kogi State. I've never seen terrain like that in my life. Some health facilities, we had to park the vehicle, wade through the river to get to the health facilities. In fact, we got to one health facility, I sat down and I saw everybody trying to drive something off me, and I asked them what it was. They were trying to prevent tsetse fly from biting me. I pretended as if I don't know what would happen if I got bitten by tsetse fly. And then I asked, do people come here? One thing I found on all those trips, as terrible as the terrain was, I found Maltina. I found posters of politicians. I saw popular beverage, Coca-Cola, but I didn't find health. So I kept asking, how did all of this get here and health did not? So it means we have not valued health as we should. Then it also shows me that we need to borrow from the business world. How can we get health to these places? How did you get your drink to this remote place and then we couldn't get health there? So we need to engage more in social marketing. Borrow from the principles of marketing so that we can get health to those places.
Is it the fact that we are not taking health seriously, or some people, some policymakers will say resources available is not sufficient?
I think it's a matter of priority. We once had a study with one of my students among local government policymakers. And one of the questions we asked them was if they were willing to use their constituency allowance for maternal health. And they said no. There's funding from international bodies. And in fact, one of them asked us, are women really dying from pregnancy? Now, he asked that question because it has not happened to his daughter or sister or somebody close to him. So they don't know, they don't feel it. So it's a matter of priority.
Maternal mortality is something that shouldn't be happening in the 21st century. At least in developed clime, it's almost like nothing. But here we see it happen almost every time. How do we bring this to the barest minimum? Because it's almost like when you see someone get pregnant, everybody's afraid. We are not sure, but we should be sure with the level of technology and resources available in the world today.
What we can do is to start from before the woman gets pregnant. Because there are many things we take for granted. But if we start from before the woman becomes pregnant, then the woman knows her health status from pregnancy. So we know that this pregnancy is a high risk pregnancy. And so you take that pregnancy as high risk from day one. Our antenatal care, how readily available are they? We have people in our communities that we refer to as traditional birth attendants. Some people frown at them, that they have no role to play, but I say they have a role to play, because we have limited number of specialist practitioners that will cover the remote areas. My own take is that if you think these traditional birth attendants don't have enough skill, or that they go beyond their boundaries, why don't you train them to say, these are the signs of complications. When you see this, don't keep the woman, send the woman. And one of the challenges we have is that there's a disconnect between those in the health facilities and those who are providing service at the community level. We found that in one of our studies on malaria. You know, I mean, if any of us have malaria now, we are not going to the hospital to get drugs. We go to the pharmacy or patent medicine vendors. And so we keep on taking the drugs until something happens.
And sometimes you could even predict the kind of drug you want.
You tell them the kind of drugs you want. So we found that the patent medicine vendors are doing something different. The traditional healers are doing something different, and they're also treating. And of course, the orthodox medical practitioners. We actually, for those traditional herbal herbalists, we monitored how they were treating. And we were taking the blood sample of the children they were treating from day 0 to day 21. And we were monitoring the clearance of the malaria parasites. It worked. But where there are complications, what happened? So what we did was, of course, some of the traditional people agreed that they put some tablets of, then chloroquine was the treatment, a drug of treatment. Some of them agreed that they put chloroquine in some of their herbs. Okay, so if you agree that you put chloroquine, put the complete dose, so that we know the person, because one of the challenges was drug resistance. Put the complete dose, so we know the person is going to take complete dose in graded measurements. So we brought the three of them together, because the patent medicine vendors said if they refer people to the hospitals, they turn them down and say, well, you know that you are just coming. So we brought all of them together in the same room, and we said, look, we need to help one another and people in the community. And together they agreed. They designed a referral form so that the patent medicine now refers to the hospital and the person is not turned back. The same with the traditional herbalists. Herbalists, because they treat in with herbs. So they also refer. So for women, we need to strengthen the capacity of these traditional birth attendants so that they can recognize the signs and symptoms of complications and quickly refer the woman. And of course, we also need to look at, because there are 3 sets of delay: the delay in seeking care, the delay in getting to the facility. So this is where community engagement is important. We need to engage the community to say, we are our brother's keeper. We need to help a woman, a pregnant woman who is in need. So we might need to work with the road transport workers to say, please, we need you to partner with us so that you can have a dedicated person that whenever we have an emergency, the person can be quickly taken to the nearest health facility. So starting from before the woman gets pregnant to when she's pregnant, the different stages, antenatal care, and identifying promptly signs of complications, and she's referred. And then when she gets to the referral hospital, what is the reception like? I mean, sometimes you get that the whole accident and emergency is full, or there's no electricity to run basic tests. So all of these are linking together, but we need to reduce the emergencies so that we can reduce the number of women who are dying. And how do we do that? We start from before the woman gets pregnant, and so we know, okay, this is going to be a risk, a low risk, because no pregnancy is risk-free, because something can happen along the way, but at least you can predict, oh, this is going to be a high-risk pregnancy, and so we need to get things in place so that if anything happens, even if this is low-risk pregnancy, so it gives us an idea of what we need to get in place. And of course, we need to also make resources available for those in the health facilities to be able to take care of these women when they come.
Okay, now let's talk about misinformation and myth about public health. In some areas, they do not believe that these medical experts are saying the real thing. They'll tell you, no, it wasn't this way in our forefather days. Why are you telling us what are not real? So how do you experts take care of misinformation? How do you address it? And some myth that has been with us and some people are believing the myth.
Thank you very much. One thing we need to understand is that we are a product of our culture. And so we need to understand the cultural background from which that person is coming from, and be able to talk to the person from that perspective. I'll give an example. I also work on reproductive health of young people. And so when we talk about sexuality education, they say, no, don't come and spoil our children. Don't come and when they say things like that, I just smile. Because what your children know, you don't know. So I tell them and I say, forget about our English, big English. Then I start from the cultural perspective, and I will say, in the cultural Yoruba tradition, way of life, when a girl child sees her menstruation for the first time, the mother calls the child, say, welcome to womanhood. They kill a chicken for her. Each time I say it, I ask the people in the room, how many of you got a chicken? For some of them are looking at me like, what is she talking about? I said, well, a chicken was killed for me. So they now sit you down and say, now you are a woman. This you will see every month. This is how you go around it. Then they now tell you, now if you see, if a man touches you, that is where the misinformation. If a man touches you, now you get pregnant. I mean, they just say touch like this. But that is not the touch they're talking about. So I start from that and I tell them, all those things you were doing are sexuality education. That is what we have brought. So coming in from that, so they never saw me as an enemy or somebody bringing some. So say, oh, really? I said yes. I said, why we now have problem is because we stopped doing those things. And so we need to understand the culture of the people and look at what is it. When we started, I said, before the corn came, the chicken has been eating something. To understand this phenomenon that it is there in the culture, how were you treating it? And from there we say, okay, you have always treated it this way, but you know why it's not working? So as health professionals, we also need communication skill to be able to talk to people in the language in which they understand. Not all our technical jargons, to have a listening ear. I know it's very difficult bearing the number of patients we have to see, but within that, we need to listen. A smart patient does not repeat the important information twice. The most important information needed to take the most important information, the patient does not repeat it twice. I've seen examples. And so as a healthcare provider, if you miss it out, every other management is peripheral. And so as health professionals, we also need to calm down. We need to humble ourselves and listen to them. I'll give you a personal example. It happened to me. Two examples. I've been talking to people about active listening. I saw it real life in 1998 when I took my father to the accident and emergency clinic. So they said they should set the IV line, and my father was just giving his own history, and he just said it casually that a doctor once told him he was diabetic. He didn't say it twice. But if that doctor was not listening, my father would have died that night. He then said, hold on, because he asked them to set IV line of dextrose, that is adding sugar upon sugar. And he just said, hold on, let's do random blood sugar. When the result came out midnight, the whole casualty was like upside down. Is the patient still alive? I said, he's the one there talking. Now imagine if the doctor was not listening actively, if he was just saying, let me just do. That's one example. Sometimes we also don't listen to our patients when they tell us. I belong to an elderly primary. I mean, I had my child well over 50, and then they were talking about breastfeeding, and they said, I said, I wasn't lactating. They said that I didn't want to breastfeed her. I said, I've talked to people, that is what I do. I talk to people about exclusive breastfeeding. So why will I not want to breastfeed they didn't believe me. I mean, they did not believe me.
As a practitioner yourself.
So if they don't believe me, how would they believe somebody who is from the village? I said, they didn't believe me. They did everything. That was when they said, okay, you cannot give her infant formula. So I told a colleague, and he said, Prof, you know why? That's why our patients don't tell us the truth. So, and I just sat back and said, so if they don't believe me, a professor, so if somebody who has never gone to school, I mean, that person just, so we need to come down from our professional pride, listen to people, because that is the only way we can make a difference. And I tell people, why do you think some patients, every patient wants to see a particular doctor? The other doctor, nobody is there, everybody is lining up. It's because that doctor is doing something different.
All right. I want to, because our time is fast leaving us, you spoke about some emerging diseases earlier, and you mentioned some lifestyle changes that probably are indicators to the emergence of diseases. Now, one of the things I want you to speak to is work-life balance. What should be the ideal? What should be the what are the extremes? What are the ideals?
And thank you very much. That's an important question for all of us to think about. We have 24 hours in a day. Even God who made heaven and earth rested, but we walk around the clock. I mean, if anything happens to you, work will continue. What is work-life balance? Is to ensure that your life, and when I mean your life, your family life, your social life, is not on hold at the expense of your work. It also means that your work is also not suffering at the expense of your family. So, how do we strike a balance? We all know what our job schedule entails. How can that fit into our 24 hours in a day? How can I ensure that as I'm effective at work, I'm also an effective mother or an effective wife. We need to be able to draw the line. No, beyond this, no. Work will not finish. A child that is yet to be born will still come and sit on that seat we are sitting on. So work cannot finish. But we need to ask ourselves, I've been sitting on this table in the last 1-2 hours. Did I stand up? Every hour we should stand up and walk around. That's why we just say some people just suddenly fell and died. It's because they've been sitting for long, clots have formed in their feet, and then standing up, we say they throw embolus, they throw showers, the clot gets into their brain, they fall down and they die. So we need to tell ourselves, how much of this work can I do? And that means we need to make judicious use of our time. Some of us will waste the early part of the day doing nothing. And then we suddenly realize that, time is gone. And then sometimes the kind of job we do also determines how we are able to, if you are in the academia, for example, people ask me, when do you sleep? Because sometimes at 3 a.m., you are sending message to, and it's even worse since COVID that we now do hybrid. So people just send links to you, you join this link, not minding what time of the day it is and all of that. But we need to make conscious efforts. We need to drink a lot of water in our place of work. We need to take plenty of water. We need to take plenty of fruits and vegetables. I have dietitians as my friends, and they say, look, all you need to do, if you are hungry, instead of taking snacks that are healthy, just take ordinary vegetable, that your stomach will be full, but vegetable in terms of eforiro or fruits. You stay healthy, you are not going to add weight. What kind of food are we eating? The nutritionists tell us that if you are going to eat bolus, swallow, it should not be, that it should be our feast, because our feast is the size of our heart. And of course, my own feast is different from your own. And they say the amala, eba, fufu should be our feast, and the rest of the plate should be vegetables. So we need, and then we need to be able to know our extreme, how far we can go. So work-life balance is important for our mental health, whether we like it or not. If home front is not good, it's going to affect work. If work is not good, it's going to affect the home. So we need to be able to say, okay, my home has suffered, I need to do something. Oh, my work is suffering, I need to do something. I know that every day comes with this increased challenge, but we need to make conscious effort to be able to see that one does not affect the other. It will, but not too much to the extent that it's obvious to everybody that one is suffering for the other, and our mental health is key. Now we have issues with mental health, and one of the things that contribute to our unhealthy mental health is social media. I made up my mind, I'm not even going to, I just don't download those videos, because sometimes you can be on it in the next 1 hour, you don't know. By the time you suddenly realize, oh, there's a lot of work that you haven't done and you have been. So the social media is another one that we need to do something about.
Okay, is stress part of the things that we must look at? Because a lot of people will tell you stress is normal.
It's not normal.
It's normal. You should go through stress in order to achieve things.
Now, stress is both positive and negative.
Okay.
We need a bit of stress to push us to achieve, but stress is destructive. Too much stress will lead to some of the non-communicable diseases that we talked about. So we need to be able to manage our stress level. Yes, there will be stress. We need some form of push. It's like you say, conflict. You need some of it to push us to achieve. But when it comes to, you are going to the office, oh my God, that is bad. Or you sit down and your head is thumping, boom, boom. That means you are under stress. Take time off. I know some people say, oh, instead of my annual leave, give me money in exchange. Please, let's take our leave. For us, headache is not a disease.
Yeah.
It's a sign that something is wrong with you. And so when you begin to have constant headache, look inwards. The stress is part of life, but when it is too much, it's destructive to the health. You just see some people say, why are you looking? You are under stress too. So the way you know some people under stress, when you say good morning, you say, what is good about this morning? You say good morning to someone, or the person suddenly snaps, then you know there's something wrong. And there are ways of reducing stress. I have made up my mind, no stress. Instead of stressing me, I will start singing. I will start singing and dancing on the corridor. So I say, they just put you on, they say, Professor dancing. I say, maybe I'm dancing.
It's not a crime. It's not a crime.
It's not a crime to dance.
Now, well, Professor, let's talk about this climate change. We know that climate change has affected a whole lot of things. Is it affecting public health too? And should we be concerned about climate change and its effect on public health?
We should be concerned. What do we mean by climate change? It means we are beginning to see things we don't see before. Growing up in our geography class, we learnt about rainy season, dry harmattan season, August break, and we actually experienced those things. But today, there's no August break anymore. The amount of heat that is coming. Now, climate change issues came as a result of our activities, how we were taking care of our environment. Going to secondary school, I went to secondary school in Niger State. The streets are lined with trees, mango trees. It's like they are almost making a shade. There was granite pyramid. The last time I went there, I didn't find those trees anymore. Where the granite pyramids used to be is now houses that you find there. Now the way God has done it is that the plants take our carbon dioxide and gives us oxygen. And so there is a balance. But now, because of our activities, we are felling trees because we want to build estates. When we fell trees, we are degrading the land because the trees hold the soil to prevent erosion. So when the trees are gone, there will be erosion. Fresh air is no longer, fresh air is now luxury because the trees are no longer there. Our industrial activities, we emit a lot of things into the air. In fact, I tell people that COVID-19 was a blessing to the world because I saw pictures of industrialized cities before and after COVID. Before COVID, you could almost not see the sky, full of fog. But COVID, everything became beautiful. And you're saying, so it's the same. So because it's like the whole world shut down in COVID. So there was some or resetting of some sort. So climate change is because of our activities. And so it's affecting everybody. We are feeling more heat. We will see more diseases. In fact, now that dry season is coming, we need to watch out for things like measles in our children because of the heat that is coming. We need to watch out for measles, we need to watch out for smallpox and all of that. So it's affecting everybody. We will see more diseases. We will experience more flooding, except we do something. We are going to experience more, well, we still have issues with housing, whether we like it or even if we fell all the trees, we'll still have. So to tackle climate change, we need to watch our day-to-day activities. How do we manage our waste? What am I doing to contribute to the climate change? And until we begin to do things consciously, it's going to worsen. Even where ice has not melted in years, hundreds of years. I mean, how can you explain flood in the desert? We know desert to be land and land. Now we are seeing flood in the desert. That is the gravity of the climate change.
All right, I want to talk about donor agencies, NGOs. They play a very good role, one important role in public health space. Now, to what extent have they played a role? What is their relationship with government? And what can we do better to harness the benefits that these people bring in to the public health sector?
Donor agencies have been instrumental in improving the health of the community in terms of donation of drugs, of commodities. But I think we can do better. Because sometimes some of what the donors bring are what we can provide ourselves as a nation. And so we need to sit down as a nation to say, what really are our needs? So that we don't just take everything that comes from them. I know, like the saying that says, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So when they bring something, there's something else in return. So we need to ask ourselves, do we really need this? Is this something that we can do for ourselves? For there was a time, it was very embarrassing. Nigeria ran out of contraceptives because the donors didn't supply. Very embarrassing. And that is something we could procure for ourselves. So we need to be more strategic in our thinking as to what exactly do we need from these donors and the overall benefits for children, for women. I'm sure the men are always saying we are talking about children and women, and also the men, and also the men.
Okay, and lastly, we have just a few minutes before we will leave. If you are given the opportunity to change anything about public health, let's say policy, implementation, anything at all, what will it be? What advantage would that change that you want to make or do to the country or the whole world?
If I have an opportunity, is to re-engineer how our policies come to be, so that the critical stakeholders are involved, and the critical stakeholders is at the community level, because whether we like it or not, health is produced at the household level, not at the Ministry of Health. And so if I have an opportunity, is to start from the critical mass, the primary stakeholders, and we move up from there. If we do that, then they see the policy as their own. I know what you don't sacrifice for, you don't value it. So when they know that, oh, I spent my time discussing this, My views, my needs have been put into it, then implementation becomes easier. And ultimately, it's to everybody's benefit.
All right, thank you, Prof.
All right, it's an educative class on New Dawn this morning. Many thanks to Professor Oyedunni Arologun, the new Vice Chancellor of Christian University. He has been schooling us in the last 1 hour about public health in public eyes. I have learned something, I'm sure you have done also, especially on the need for us to take our health very seriously. I want to say a big thank you, Prof, for
Thank you
coming
for having me
this morning.
Thank
Really,
you.
it has been an eye-opener for us.
Thank you for having me.
And we would like to say a big thank you to you for being there and since New Dawn started at 8 a.m. Tomorrow, Thursday, is Otunjo, the Yoruba version of New Dawn, and I'm sure you're going to learn 1 or 2 things also. But for us, we have to go.
All right, I want to thank Professor again for coming and thank our viewers too for watching us. Be with us all through our programming for today and the day tomorrow and all over the days. We are here on Ogtv to give you impactful programming. Until we see again next time, we will tell you to make sure that your health is intact and go for regular checkup, as the professor has said. My name remains Charity James. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.